Alright, this is Brian Singleton with Earl Dudley Inc. in Birmingham, Alabama. Today we're going to look at using Topcon's Pocket 3D grade management software. We're going to look specifically at creating a project from scratch and importing our data into that project, our control points, line work, surfaces, so that we can go out and do our grade management on our project, as well as do some stakeout and layout of features, lines, points, etc. Today we're going to be focusing primarily on the Data tab. If you're familiar with the Pocket 3D software packages, you know that there's 4 main tabs at the bottom. Setup being equipment setup, data is where everything is going to reside that we're going to work with today. It's where all of your project information goes in and out of the project. Survey is actually your layout and field work, and display is basically just exactly that. It's options on what you want to see on your screen. So let's get started with data. We're going to select data. Project being the very first thing we want to look at. Right now you can see project default is indicated as our current project. Obviously this is not a real project, but we're going to pick that, and that's going to bring open our project list. If you have other projects in here, you'll see those listed in this display here. In this case, we're going to create a new project. We don't want to use our default. We're going to start from scratch with our new project. In this case, we're going to hit new. New project file name. If we pick in that window, it's going to allow us to type in a name for our project. In this case, we're just going to call it test site. And then we're going to hit OK. So now we have a name. The next thing you see on this window is preload data from current active project. In this case, it is not checked under control points localization millimeter GPS data. Most of the time that is going to be the case. What this will do is, if this is checked off, it will bring in the control points and data from the previous project. Most of the time, unless you're working on multiple projects on the same site, that's not going to be what you want. You don't need the control points and data from a previous project brought into this new project. So we're going to leave that unchecked, and we're going to hit OK. Now you can see our new project shows up in our project list, and you can see it's highlighted in blue. So we're going to hit OK, and that's going to make that our current project. Pocket 3D is going to ask you, are you sure this is what you want to do? Because if you're doing anything else, any other measurements or anything in the current project, it is going to disconnect from that project, and it may not save anything that you're currently doing. In this case, yes, we're trying to create a project. That's exactly what we want to do. So yes. You heard that. It makes a little small beep. It tells you that it has created a project. Now, just to verify, we go to Data, Project, and you can see Test Site is our current project. So now that is our project. That's what we're going to be working with. Our next step is going to be to bring in our control points. In the beginning of our project, we need to have some control on the ground, typically provided by our surveyor or designer of the project. They can give us that data in a number of different formats. Typically that data will either come on a piece of paper and you have to hand enter each control point. If that's the case, we'll look at that as well. Or it may come in as a text file, an ASCII text file, and if that's the case, we'll look at importing that as well. So under the Data tab, we're going to go to Control, and then we're going to select Control Points off the top of the list. And as you can see, we have no points in here. We have no point names. We have no horizontal vertical error listed. In this case, we're going to go ahead and bring in 1 point just manually, just to show you how to do that. Assuming we have a point list on a piece of paper with data, northing, easting, elevation information from our surveyor, we're going to add that point to our point list. We're going to give it a name. It's going to be point whatever it happens to be, 5,000 in this case. Okay, so now under description, we can give it a new description or no description. It really doesn't matter. It's personal preference. If you want to call it something else, you can call it, you know, a pin or whatever you want to call it, just to kind of describe what that is. And we also are going to have a northing, an easting, and an elevation provided by our surveyor for this information. So I'm going to give it just, basic information. We're going to type that in manually. Elevation. And now you can see it's filled in all three of these fields. That's going to give us the coordinates for our project for this particular point that we're manually putting into the project. We're going to hit OK. So now you can see we have point number 5000 listed in our control point listing. If we had 5 or 4 or 12 or however many points we have to manually enter, as we put these in, you'll see it fill in this field. And for normal localization, we're going to want 4 points at a minimum if possible. We're going to hit OK. So that created that point manually. We also have some points that the surveyor sent us in a text ASCII file. So we want to bring those in as well. So in that case, we're going to go to Data, Control, Import Export, Points Only, from a text file. And you'll know that because the file format at the end of it will be a .txt. That's going to tell you it's a text ASCII file. And that's what we're going to try to bring in now. So we're going to select from a text file. And you can see the first thing that pops up is our source text file. That's going to be where we're going to tell it where our file is. We're going to have it on a thumb drive or on our data collector, and we're going to have to go and find that file to bring it in. Also listed on here is a format. Every one of these text files have to be formatted correctly for it to read. You're going to have a point, a northing, easting, elevation, and description. That is a standard survey format. And that is what we're going to use with this, because most of the time that's the format you're going to get your points in. In this case, I've already created a format called text. If you've never imported a text file, you may not have a format listed. If you don't have one, then we're going to need to create one. In that case, we would hit Format at the bottom. You can see these are our formats listed. In this case, I'm just going to edit the one I have just to show you what's in it. There's our format name. There's our file extension, TXT, and that's almost always going to be the case. And here are the line items that it's going to be looking for in our point file. Point name, northing, easting, elevation, and description. And we can rearrange those depending on how they show up in our file, but the standard is always name, northing, easting, elevation, description. Once we have that in order, we can add more line items if we need to. We can edit those line items, or we can delete those line items. In this case, just to show you, point name, I'm going to delete that one. But we need a point name. That's always our first thing. So I'm going to hit Add. It's going to be point name, and it's going to be trailing comma, and that's pretty standard. Other options are trailing space and trailing tab, but most of the time it's going to be comma delimited. I'm going to hit OK, and you can see it added it, but it added it at the bottom. But we need it at the top, because that's always our first thing, is our point name. So now that we have our format set up, and we're comfortable that it matches our file, we're going to hit OK, hit OK again. So we're back to our main source text file screen. That's our format, which we just verified. I'm going to hit the box with the 3 dots. I'm going to select my test site control point text file from my hard drive and hit open. Now you can see it shows us exactly what it brought in. Here's our point name, northing, easting, elevation, description. And that's from the file that they sent us. I'm going to hit OK, and it's going to tell us 4 points were imported. I'm going to hit OK. Now you can see on our map, we can see the 4 points that we brought in. If we zoom out, we can also see the point that we created manually. Because now if we go back to Data, Control Points, we can see all 5 points are listed. We don't have any horizontal or vertical error data because we haven't localized the project, which is not part of this video. But in this case, we just want to see that we have brought in the data. It is available. We can always go back and highlight it and edit our points, make adjustments. If we decided, well, we mistyped that one, it's really 5010, we can go back and change that. And then when we hit OK, it's going to update, and you can see it moved a little bit. So that told us it moved it to the correct location. But now we've got our control points. They're showing up on our map, so we know we've got what we need to get started. The next thing we're going to do is going to be bring in some surface information. Typically, if you have an in-house person that does your models, they're going to build you a .tn3 file, a surface model for your project based on the original civil design package. That's going to give you all of your vertical data information for you to use out on the project. You may not have anybody in-house that does this. You may have to outsource it. You may have the surveyor designer may provide you that information. But either way, the surface is going to be what we need to work with next. Bring that into our file. That way, if we're running machine control or even just rover, we have some surface information to be able to verify our grading with. And in this case, you can see under surface, none is our current surface. So we don't have a surface. If we go to our list, you can see it's not there. So we're going to go data, surface, none is there. We're going to go to import export, and we're going to import from a surface file. If we were exporting, we would be exporting to a surface file. But in this case, we're going to import from a surface file provided by our model builder. When we pick it, it opens up our window. You can see building pad is our current surface. That's the one we're going to bring in to our project. Building pad.tn3, that's the file format for TopCon surfaces. I'm going to hit open, and you can see immediately it tells us it imported one surface. I'm going to hit OK. And now you can see the triangulation lines that represent the surface. The surface is really a data set. It shows up on the screen as a triangulation line network. That gives you some ability to see it and visualize what you've got. But in reality, it's a data set, and the software will use the data set to give you the information you need. And you can see our building pad falls right in the middle of our control points provided by our surveyor. So when we localize the file in the field, we'll be able to work with this data within our original control points. So now we have a surface. And if we go back to data, surface, you can see that building pad is our current surface. If we hit that, you can see we have a surface in our list called building pad. If we had multiple building pads or multiple surfaces, we may have one with building pad, we may have parking lot, we may have pond A, pond B, whatever. You can toggle between those as you use them in the field. But in this case, we've got one surface that we brought in. That's going to be the one we're going to work with, and that's all we need for now. Going forward, we're going to do data. We're going to go to line work. We want to see our line work. We want to see where our project is. So our model builder that provided our surface also provided a line work file. In this case, it's called an LN3. That's TopCon's line work file format. So we're going to go to line work, import export from an LN3 file. But basic same process for each one of these imports that we do. It's going to be data, whatever type of information we're looking for, import export, and what type of data we're bringing in or going out to. In this case, it's going to be an LN3 file, and I'm going to pick that. And then again, we've got the same familiar source file name dialog box, and you can see we have no file name in there. So we want to hit the box with the 3 dots. That's going to take us to our hard drive. We're going to select the file that we want, whether it's on our hard disk, on the hard drive of the data collector, wherever it happens to reside, and we're going to hit open. So now you can see we've got test site lines.ln3 as our source file name. We also have an option here to add all of the lines to a single layer, which we can select from our project, or we can create a new one, or we can leave them on the layers that it's already on. In this case, I'm not worried about specifying which layer I want to put my line work on. I want it to just come in based on the way it was built from our designer. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to hit OK, and you can see it's going to now tell us imported 9 lines from test site lines.ln3. So it's telling us we found 9 lines in that file that you specified. Hit OK. And now you can see, now we've got some information to work with. We've got what looks like a little contour line that kind of goes around our parking lot. We've got pad lines that show up around our pad that kind of define where the pad is. And you can see the surface, the triangulation network, that is the data that is represented by the vertical component of the surface in that pad area. We've still got our control points. We're moving. We can move around. You can see we're in pan mode. And we've got our line work now, we've got a surface to work with, we've got our control points, and we also may have some just general line points or data points that we want to bring in. In this case, we've got a set of points for the building corners. We want to bring those into our project as well so we can stake out our building corners from the points. So in this case, we're going to hit Data. We're going to go to Points, and I'm going to hit Listing just to show you. In our listing, we don't have anything. Our default layer, there's multiple layers, and if we go to all layers, we can see we have no points on any layers, and that's okay because we hadn't brought any in. So we're going to go to Data, Points, Import Export from a text file, and this will be the same file type that we use for our control points. We're going to do from a text file, same screen, source text file. Hit our three dots. We're going to find our test site points.txt, wherever those happen to be. We're going to hit Open, and you can see these are our points. Just like it did with our control points, it's reading the point name, the northing, the easting, and the elevation and the description from our point file in the same text format. You notice we didn't make any changes here. It's always going to be our default format. And then we're going to hit OK. And it's going to tell us now that 10 points were imported into our project. We hit OK. Now you can see our point numbers are listed where they happen to fall on our project. You can change how this thing is displayed. If you want to do that, you can go to Data, Layers, and you can see these layers are checked off, so these are on. I think we put them on the building layer maybe. And then we're going to Edit. And here you can turn on points or turn points off if you want to see them, and this is strictly display. Has nothing to do with the storing of points or whether the points go away in the project. It's only a display option. But in this case, we're going to leave it like it is. We want to see our point numbers. We don't necessarily need to see the elevation or description or anything. But this gives us a basic introduction into creating a project, importing our control points, importing a surface for our project, which is shown as our current surface, importing line work, and importing points into the project. So now we have the basics needed for us to be able to go out in the field, localize our project, and begin to either stake out or check grades, do cut fill analysis on the project, build points, shoot in existing features. Any of that information that we need to do, we've got the basis of what we need to get started. Thank you for listening.